Hi there, this is Chris from MoneyHub, and this video looks at best free credit cards within New Zealand. So we've put together this guide, which I've linked to down below, which takes you through everything you need to know about free credit cards. But I want to explain basically the guide and just put some finer points into this video to help make an informed decision when you are looking for a free credit card. Now, the first thing I want to say is that there is no such thing as a free credit card per se. So what that means is that when we talk about free credit cards, we're talking about cards which don't charge an annual fee. So that currently, and of course this can change from time to time, is going to be the likes of the ANZ with their free credit card option, and the American Express free AirPoints card, and then you have an ASB Visa Lite card, and you also have a KiwiBank Zero fee card as well. So whilst they don't charge an annual fee, which is normally like an annoying kind of fee you pay, every 6 months or every 12 months, that's added onto your card, that can range from anything to, $25 to $180, $195 for some cards. The free credit cards don't charge that fee. So that's why they're called free credit cards. But it's really important to realize that they do also, charge fees, but they just don't charge that annual fee. Now, where people get caught out, of course, with credit cards is the annual interest rate. And so we've made it very clear what those annual interest rates are. They're all, actually almost all of them are over 20%, which makes spending your own money incredibly expensive if you don't repay it. So please, if you are looking for a free credit card or any credit card, do not get a credit card, we believe, unless you are able to make those monthly repayments, because this is what happens. People get credit cards and then they go into debt, and then the cost of paying it back is just so high. Now, we're very pleased to see that despite the banks not being the most generous, there are still options to get rewards off free credit cards, and that's usually in the case of American Express, which offer AirPoints dollars for money that you'll spend on your card. But the rewards that you can earn do vary, so we're going to just explain that too. So what I want to do is just go through some must-know rules of free credit cards, just so that you have a general understanding, and then I'll quickly go through some of the cards on offer, which tend to be long-term offers, but it's helpful if I just explain them. So first of all, for a free credit card, please prioritize repaying your balance on time. And we're really not trying to encourage people to get credit cards if they do have debts already, because then it's really hard to service all these debts. But if this is you and you have to get a credit card for whatever purpose, whatever needs, then please prioritize it, because the repayment, because it's really unlikely that you'll have debts that will have higher interest rates, just because the credit cards are usually 20% plus per year. And that is just such a large amount of money when you're looking at a $2,000 balance, a $3,000 balance, or any balance really. It just gets expensive. So please prioritize them. They're not free in sense of the cost of service and the interest when you don't repay on time. So what you'll pay is pretty much in line with any other credit card. Now, if you are struggling, and of course many people are in New Zealand, perfectly normal, then please just at least make the minimum repayment. So this will be, depending on the bank that you're with and the card that you have, it'll be between anywhere and between 2 and 5% of the closing balance. So if you owed, say for example, $1,000, then most banks or most credit card providers are going to ask you to pay between 2 and 5%. And we have a dedicated guide to that, which I do recommend having a look at. So that would be for 2 and 5% on $1,000 would be between $20 and $50. So that's what you have to repay to avoid any credit charges, which you'll still be charged interest, but then you won't miss this. So then you won't be pinged with these sort of extra fees for not making the minimum repayment. This is how credit card companies and how banks make money. So please try to avoid giving them your money by adhering to what they require, which is that minimum repayment. Now, we've talked about good credit scores. We also mean like good credit history. So if you are applying for a credit card, and this isn't just a free credit card or any credit card in general, really make sure that you do have a strong case to present. Of course, with the legislation now with CCCFA, banks are taking less risks, and everyone's taking less risks around lending. And of course, when you get a credit card, you are actually borrowing money from the bank or from the issuer. So they need to make sure that you can pay it back. So if you come across as someone who's possibly defaulted on things before or had some sort of bad credit history, then that's going to be a problem for your application. So just go through. We've got a dedicated guide which you can read about credit scores and credit reports, and that's really useful for just getting an understanding of where you can go to get your history, so you can properly make sure everything's correct, and then challenge anything that's not. Now, next to that, if you are thinking that you'll struggle to pay off the balance, then look for a free credit card with a low interest offer. Of course, that's not financial advice. Everyone's different, but that is usually the most logical and most sensible way to approach it. So you'll save on the annual fee, so you won't have to pay to spend your own money in terms of annual fee, but you'll also get a low interest rate too, which can help, repay it without too much sort of added cost. Of course, repaying with a interest being accumulated on a credit card is not fun, but at least this way it can be cheaper. So best credit cards, this is just a summary. Of course, we change this from time to time as the cards on offer change. I just wanted to talk to you about some of them. So the ANZ low rate Visa card, for example, that's got a 12.9% annual fee for the interest, which is quite low. Of course, all of these cards, because they're in the free credit cards page, which on MoneyHub, which I've linked to down below, they are also earning, they're also free annual fee, but they're not earning many rewards or anything like that. So just be cautious. I've sort of signaled those there so you can be, aware of what's on offer. But as I say, just be cautious around the interest rate, because free with a high interest rate, doesn't matter who's offering it, that can really catch people out. I mean, people could say, oh, well, you won't pay anything to have the credit card. But if the interest rate's 25 or 30% or something crazy like that, even over 20, then it can get really expensive, and the annual fee is pretty much it's pretty much immaterial, i.e. not significant, compared to the value of money or the sum of money that you'll be paying on any interest that for balances that you can't or don't repay. Second to that, the Amex card. So that's a card which gives you $1 air points dollar for every $100 spent, and they often have sign-up bonuses there. So that's a product, or that's a credit card which is actually giving you something for nothing, just for spending. And of course, you have to make the minimum repayments there. But that's something that is quite popular, especially as they're widely accepted within the petrol stations, the supermarkets, the big shops. So just do be aware that some cards will offer you rewards. In the case of $1 air point dollar for $100 spent, that is one example of those. Now, the ASB Visa Lite, that has been popular for a long time. This is fee-free, of course, and you do get something called 6-month interest-free for purchases over $1,000. So, of course, you have to have a credit limit, which means the amount that you can spend will need to be over $1,000 to be able to make a purchase all at once. So this isn't spending $1,000 worth of stuff over a month or whenever to get that to activate. You need to spend it on something that's really like a big box item to be able to get that 6-month interest free. But I would say please be very careful with this card, because just because it's interest free, what happens to a lot of people is that they don't make any repayments during that interest free period, or they're well below on what they owe. So when the interest free period's over, say you've bought something for $1,000 and you've paid off $300 over that 6 months, and then from the 7th month onwards, you'll owe $700 still, so $1,000 less the $300 that you've paid, but it's now going to be charged at the full interest rate. So you're looking at quite a bit of money there per month just to repay the interest that's being charged, let alone the balance as well. So with interest-free periods and no repayment periods, we always say to people, please just pay it off. Don't worry about the interest-free. It's nice to have. You can pay it off a bit slower, but always pay it off within the period that it's due. Otherwise, you'll just be paying interest on what you've already spent, and it gets just it's very annoying and a complete waste of money. And then there's cards like the Kiwi Bank Visa credit card. I'll just show you the example here of this. So this is a long-standing product, and you can see that the key features here. It's called the Zero Visa. It's got a low interest rate of 12.9%, and then the interest rates and the fees, of course, the account fee is zero. If you want any additional people on that credit card, then it's also no fee. You can get up to 55 interest free days. Then they also do a balance transfer, which means if you want to move a balance from a card onto this card, then they will, if you're approved, will give you 1.99% for 6 months. And then you can see that there's a minimum credit limit of $500. So these are just some examples of cards on offer. If we go down, we can also see the SBS card, and that gives you cash back. So not as high as the rate arguably for the Amex card, because you're going to be earning $1, so $1 air points for every dollar. So for every $100 that you spend, whereas this is 67 cents for every $100. But at the same time, sometimes people just prefer cash back than having air points dollars. Totally get that. And so this card exists for people who just want to make the most of the benefit. And so just to correct that, that's $1 cash back for every $150 spent on the card, not $100. Now, finally, the best practices for free credit cards. So don't get interest on them. That's really the most obvious and sensible tip here. But of course, it is easy to get carried away, and all people of all different incomes struggle with credit cards. So it's not unique to anyone specifically. It is a widespread problem. It's human behavior to have these credit cards and not repay them for many people. So just avoid all of that by only buying things that you can afford to repay the month after, and set a credit limit that you're comfortable with should you want to get one of these cards. So that could be $500, that could be $1,000. They're usually a good places to start. Once again, not financial advice, just something to be really aware of. And then the best approach is to set up a direct debit to pay the amount off every month. So this means that you have to have money in your bank account to make the repayment. You will get a statement at the end of the month knowing what you have to pay. So usually a statement will come in around the 1st, 2nd, or the 3rd of the following month. And then it'll say your payment is due in, say, the middle of that month. So you'll get a bit of a warning, so you can move some money around, or pay it off quickly if that's easier, rather than risk money not being there later in your account if you've already spent it. But that's pretty much the summary there. Please just always only spend what you have to spend, and make sure whatever you do spend, you repay it. So that's our guide to free credit cards. I wanted to put this together to help explain. If you have any questions, any comments, please leave them in the comments below. We like to keep our guides as up to date as possible. And so it's really helpful when people write in and just or leave comments below and, help us to do that and ask questions that we want to answer that possibly haven't been covered in the guide already. So thanks very much, and we wish you the best looking for a free credit card.